everyone. Phil Crimmins here from Mandarin Blueprint. If you don't know me, I created Mandarin Blueprint with my buddy Luke to fix the broken Mandarin education system once and for all. And our courses are helping thousands of members reach university-level Chinese in a fraction of the time. And today I'm going to show you guys one of the reasons why we can do it in a fraction of the time. And that's because we have a method for learning Chinese characters called the Hanzi movie method that utilizes a bunch of awesome ancient Greek techniques. And so one of the things that we're going to, ancient Greek memory techniques, I should say. And so what we're going to do today is go through a few more characters. In the previous live stream, I went through the characters 1, 2, and 3, 10, dry, and half. So just as a quick review there, we went through 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 10, and gan. And I talked about how to create these different mnemonic scenes so that you can remember each character. But what we're going to do today first is we're going to gather some information. So one of the things, we're going to need to know a number of things today. We're going to need to know some people's faces. We're going to need to know some places related to our lives. We're going to need to know some objects that we're going to call props. And we also want to have actions, things that happen in a movie scene that help us remember a single Chinese character. So, how are we going to do that? Well, first we need to come up with some male R names. So people with an R name, like Robert or Randy or Ryan, right? And so maybe you can think of a famous person who is a male with an R name, or maybe you can think of somebody from your life. Just, oh yeah, Noah Roger. Or it could even be Mr. Rogers for that matter. It doesn't have to be a first name. It could be a last name as well. But any male R names? Anybody? Let's see what we got. Well, I'm going to tell you what I'll do, because I want to kind of move through this a little bit faster. So what I'm going to do is, if I don't get any responses for any names or anything like that, then I'll just come up with one and add it to the list. So for R, we'll go with, how about Robert Downey Jr.? Okay. Well, Gordon Ramsay is a good one too. Gordon Ramsay, sure. And so, we can choose one of those in a bit, but let's look at A2 here. So this is places from your life containing a connection to the sound EN. For example, you might have an elementary school, and the elementary is what you do to link to the sound of EN. Now, I'll explain why we're doing this in a minute, but is there any type of place that you can think of where thinking of EN connects? And if you can't think of anything, then just go with your elementary school. All right. So what I'll do is I'm just going to put in here Hatfield Elementary, because that's where I went to elementary school, in Hatfield, Pennsylvania. Okay. So yeah, garden. Okay, so Shannon, you've mentioned garden there. I like that. So the EN sound in garden. Now the next step is to think of what place had the best garden as far as you were concerned. It could be your parents' house, or maybe, although I would save your childhood home for the null final, which I'll explain later, but the garden maybe at your friend's house, or perhaps the garden at apartment complex you lived in. Even if it wasn't your garden, it was the garden nearby. Something like that would help out. Okay, yeah, sure, Versailles. Yeah, the Palace of Versailles in particular. Like, you want to pick a building if possible. A building if possible. So, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put Hatfield Elementary in here for the moment, and we'll move on to A3 here. So that's objects that look like this particular component. And this component, what does it look like to you? It could be, it's just kind of a stroke, right? There's not too much to it, but it kind of leans to the side. It curves a bit. What does it look like? I don't know. I think to me, that looks like a sword of some kind, like a sword that is like slashing across. So I'm going to go with a samurai sword for that. Oh, but we actually had an answer for that one. Sorry. Luca said A3 katana blade. So yeah, we'll go with a katana. Katana. I like that. Okay. So, and yes, it is true, Poncheesy, that this looks like a J, but we want to come up with 3D objects if possible. We're going to try to remember all this stuff, and 3D objects are much more memorable than 2D lines on a page. It's not that it's impossible to remember those things. It's just harder on the continuum. So next we want to look at A4. So this is what objects look like this one? Well, it's just kind of a reversed version of this, but you don't want to have it be the exact same thing. So we have a katana blade as one of the options here, but in order to not create confusion, we should have it be something else. And so a katana, maybe we could have a different type of sword, although we would kind of want it to be curving. But how about this? Let's go with a banana. And the reason is that a banana is different enough from a katana that even though they're both curved shaped things, you'll remember that the katana represents the stroke that goes, top right to bottom left, and the banana is the one that goes from top left to bottom right. Couple of swords, right? Now, so far, let me just go over A. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with Gordon Ramsay for the first one because that was that was a suggestion. So here's what we got so far. Gordon Ramsay, Hatfield Elementary, katana, banana. Now, of course, for all of you guys, the elementary set is going to be your own particular elementary school or just some other building that is associated with the EN sound. For example, Shannon said that garden is the EN sound she thinks of, so she could imagine a building nearby her favorite garden. You just need to be familiar with the building in some way. Okay, so let's take a look at B1. The person you think is the ultimate representative of the human race. So who's the ultimate human? And I'll be curious to see what you guys think here. Who's the ultimate? All right. Here's my recommendation. I'm going to go with the man I think that should be the representative of Earth if there is ever an alien battle. Let me just pull it up here. All right. What I would want is my man, Chuck Norris. We had Goku from yesterday. So to me, Chuck Norris is like, maybe it's just because I'm a millennial, and when I was a kid, the Chuck Norris jokes were our favorite thing to do. It's like, yeah, I can't think of any Chuck Norris jokes off the top of my head, but like everything was Chuck Norris was the most powerful person ever, right? So I'm going to go with Chuck Norris as the representation of the most human, okay? All right, so let's go back to the next question here. We have a person or thing that represents to follow. A person or thing that represents to follow. Or a follower. A follower of some kind. What represents to follow? All right, I'm going to go with, there's a couple good ones here. You got Siamese twin, right? Because obviously the one twin has to follow the other twin everywhere they go. That's a decent one. I guess these days you're supposed to say conjoined twins, right? So conjoined twins. And then let's see here. What else could we have? Well, lemmings, right? Lemmings just follow each other off a cliff, right? So like, let me just see here. Lemmings. Yeah, these little guys. These little guys, the lemmings, they just follow each other off the cliff and they all crash, right? And so if we imagine lemmings for follow, I think that actually is pretty good. That's pretty good. So let's go with that. And next we want to go with B3. What kind of umbrella would you buy if money were no object? Well, this one is kind of meant to be like a little bit silly because I really just want you guys to think of an umbrella. But the point of the question is to say, think of a fantastic umbrella. Think of an umbrella that is so big that it can cover 5 people, and then it also can turn into like a bunch of cool Mr. Gadget things, like it can become a machine gun or become a sword or whatever, but it's like a super umbrella. Well, let's imagine that umbrella, and I'll explain why in a bit. Machine gun umbrella. Okay. And then next, a man whose first or last name starts with C, like Christopher Walken. Yeah. It was funny. I assume you're going with Jesus because he has followers. That's a good one. I will have like a toothbrush option. Oh, on the umbrella. Oh, I get it. A toothbrush option for the umbrella. Yeah, that would be useful. I mean, like you're out in the rain and, it's kind of a miserable day, but at least you can get some dental hygiene taken care of. I like that. All right. So actually, I'm going to go and I'm just going to put that in here. Umbrella with toothbrush extension. Just because let's get as detailed as possible. All right. So... And then we had a man whose first or last name starts with C. And I think that Christopher Walken is a great choice here. I'll always remember his scene in Joe Dirt where he was saying, he's like, talking to my boy all wrong. Give him the wrong tone. Do it again. Stab you in the face with a soldering iron. I'm not a very good Christopher Walken impressionist, but we'll use him as a man whose first or last name starts with a C. All right. C1. Who has the best walking stick in history? Magical staffs are permitted, of course, even encouraged. Okay. Best walking stick in history. Well, you know what? I'm going to pick up where we left off yesterday and continue with Gandalf's staff. Okay? So the reason for that is that Gandalf's staff, it's what we used already. And when you come up, now, for those of you who are here for the first time or seeing this for the first time today, obviously you didn't necessarily see yesterday's, but what we decided was a single horizontal stroke can be represented by Gandalf's staff because... he rules, and it's very memorable. Okay. I mean, he says it in Two Towers, Poncheesi. He says, would you deny an old man his walking stick? And, of course, whether or not he really uses it in that way, but he did say that. So, we'll go with Gandalf's staff. Although, admittedly, that was the white one. And I'm thinking of the old, wooden one. Anyway. Here's a question for C2. Who's the most famous Gary? Anyone? Gary? Who's the most famous Gary? Got a lot of Garys in the world. Who's the most famous Gary, do you guys think? For me, I don't know. I got to go with Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman, to me, feels like the most famous Gary. He was freaking Churchill. Gary Busey, though. Oh, my God. Gary Busey. No, I'm taking away Gary Oldman. Gary Busey is a much better choice just because he's wild and very memorable. And in case anybody has forgotten who Gary Busey is, this is Gary Busey. And so he rules. And if you don't know who Gary Busey is, then I'm so excited for you because you have a new favorite actor. All right, let's go with Gary Busey. Next, answer this question or answer this prompt. When I think of the word individual, what comes to mind? When I think of the word individual, what comes to mind? Well, this is one where it's not necessarily obvious, right? Because individual is a kind of abstract concept, right? So you want to think of something that's abstract, but that relates to the concept. Well, for me, sure, a human being. Tricky thing about a human being is that, there we go. So independence, right? I think you're thinking of Jerry Seinfeld there. Independence, I think there's a good thing you can make from that. Although you could also do a human being, but you said, okay, individual, that means independence. Maybe Independence Day was that movie with Will Smith, or you could say the Declaration of Independence or something like that. And so once you go individual reminds me of independence, which reminds me of the Declaration of Independence. And maybe that even reminds you of Nicolas Cage stealing it or whatever. Or was it the Constitution? No, this is the Declaration of Independence. And so my point being that if you imagine the Declaration of Independence or, the alien spaceship from Independence Day, that might bring you back to individual, right? And so I think the Declaration of Independence is a little bit better because it's more connected to the concept of individual as well, because there's the Bill of Rights, which are individual rights, right? So we can imagine the Declaration of Independence document, and that would do a good job of getting across the idea of individual. Individual makes me think divided. Here's one I thought of earlier today, which is individual makes me think about the yin yang symbol, because the Taoists would say, because I lived in Chengdu for a while, for about a decade, and that's in the shadow of Qingcheng Mountain, which is the birthplace of Taoism. And Taoism is the view from the Taoist perspective is that everything is all one process. And so actually an individual is just as continuous with the whole process as a wave is in the ocean, right? So when somebody says individual, I'm like, well, I think it's just kind of like one thing. And that's the yin yang symbol represents that. And so that's something you could have as an option. Yeah, a decade in Chengdu. Yeah, I definitely saw it grow quite a bit. So I'm going to go with the Declaration of Independence because mine was obscure and weirdly philosophical. But we can all imagine that sort of like old document that's kind of got a big signature in the middle and it looks like parchment. That's good. You can easily remember that. Okay, so do you know anyone whose name starts with an E? If so, have you been to their house? So this one is trying to use mnemonic techniques to find a place that you can associate with the letter E. It doesn't have to be somebody's name. It could also be, a store that you worked at that has an E in the name. Or it could be perhaps the like a type of place, like the electronics store. It could also be maybe you had a friend named Ellen, and Ellen's house was a place that you went to. In fact, actually, for me, I did have a friend growing up named Emily, and we went to her house all the time. So for each of you individually, you'll need to decide on a location that associates with the letter E in some way, and it's going to be unique to each of you. I had a friend named Emily who lived down the road, and I went to her house a lot, but maybe you guys don't have any friends who have an E name, but there might be some other connection that you have. So what I just want you to do is think of something related to the letter E and a place, a building related to that. So for me, I'm going to say Emily's house. For you guys, it can be something different. So E.T. phone home, it's true that, E.T. the alien is a little guy, but you would have to associate E.T. with some kind of, some kind of connection to the place. So perhaps you watched E.T. with a friend at a friend's house growing up, and you have a strong memory of that. Well, that house can be the representation of E. Okay, nice. Here's a question that I want you guys to just think about. How many rooms are in your childhood home? So just think about your childhood home for a second and just think about my childhood home had a kitchen and a family room and 4 bedrooms upstairs with a master bathroom and a bathroom upstairs. And then there was a bathroom downstairs in the powder room, and there was a laundry room. And I think I'm getting everything in the basement, right? So, and then there was a front yard, backyard. These are the rooms of my childhood home. So do the same thing. Just walk through your house and think about the rooms. Okay. Next, what's the greatest and grandest ever entrance gate ever constructed? What place can you think of where you're like, what an entrance, structure this is? Any ideas? I mean, I think the one that comes up for me is the Arc de Triomphe. Arc de Triomphe. I don't know. I don't speak French. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly. But you guys, you probably all know this one. It's this is sort of like an entryway gate. I mean, I know that it's not necessarily an entryway, but it's like a metaphorical entryway. You know what I mean? So let's go with that for the representation of a grand entrance. Actually, you know what? Here, we don't really know what these look like, but we all have heard of the idea of the gates of heaven. So actually, I like this one better because the gates of heaven can be however you imagine it, right? So, yeah, that would be fine. So let's go with that. And it's easier. That I like the idea that you guys can imagine that in whatever way works for you. Gates of heaven. Yeah, nice. Built during Napoleon's era. Yeah. Okay. So next we're going to go with the final one here. Who's the best cartoon character whose name starts with F? Or is associated with the letter F in some way? F. A cartoon with a name that starts with F. Fozzie Bear. Huh. Have I heard of Fozzie Bear? Fozzie Bear. I'm going to look him up. Oh, yeah. I know that guy. Fozzie Bear. Phineas, and Phineas is fine. Yeah, totally. Like an F sound, like because yeah, I mean, Philip Dre Fry. What a great first name. Oh yeah, I didn't. Fry from Futurama is really named Philip. Oh my gosh, I was today years old when I found that out. Yeah, Waka Waka. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, listen, I gotta go with Fry though. Now that I found out his name is Philip, oh, I'm going with Fry. I'm going with Fry on this one. All right, so we have our answers now. So let me just show you what I've come up with here. Okay, so I'm going to send this into the chat. This is everything that we've had so far. And I don't think it's going to send. It doesn't seem to want to send like in a list format. Every day I learn a little bit more about live streaming, and I am enjoying the process. The only way to get better at it is to do it all the time. Okay. Oh, I think that they're only going to let me, I think I've learned something else. I think I can only send a message that's so long. Let me try. All right. Yeah, okay, there's a message limit. Here's what I'll do. I'll just put it onto a blank notepad and then show you by sharing my screen. All right. Okay, so here's what we have. We have Gordon Ramsay, and I'm gonna make this bigger so you guys can see. We have Gordon Ramsay representing an R man. We have Hatfield Elementary or whatever your elementary school is. We have a katana, a banana, lemmings, an umbrella with toothbrush extension, Christopher Walken, Gandalf's staff, Gary Busey, the Declaration of Independence, and then we have Emily's house, which is just, for me, it could be any E place for you guys. The Gates of Heaven and Fry. All right. So that's what we have so far. And like Poncheezy said here, what a strange assortment. But guess what? We're going to learn some stuff with this crazy assortment. All right. So let's move on to the next character. Well, give me a second here. Yes. Okay. So Gordon Ramsay in the cafeteria of Hatfield Elementary takes a sword, a katana. It's not just any sword, it's a katana. And he walks over to a giant banana that is unpeeled. And then he cuts the banana open because it was shaking, and out walks a human person. Scene. So we can now remember Ren, meaning person, forever, because of the things that we learned previously. This represents katana here on the top left. And then here we have banana. So the actor, Gordon Ramsay, walks over with a katana to the banana, opens it up, and out comes a person. And by the way, this was all happening in the cafeteria of Hatfield Elementary School. So, see what I mean? Once you get these things down, and you just remember these cool things that are a part of your life, Look how quickly you can learn a character. Now, obviously you got to get the hang of this. It takes a little bit of practice, but you will. And so if you want to learn how to do this, click that link that's in the description of this video, mandarinbp.com/challenge-ls, and you can take the Mandarin Blueprint Challenge. We walk you through the whole thing. Let me just drop that in here. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. All right, well, what we have here are a couple of Chuck Norrises walking around here, and one of them is following the other right off a cliff. And that cliff has been somehow fit into the kitchen of a restaurant in Hong Kong. I forgot ONG. Sorry. I forgot to pick a place for ONG. But it's a restaurant in Hong Kong that I've been to, and I remember it quite well. And just inside the entrance, actually, it's in the kitchen with all the chefs, but there's like a cliff that has made its way into the kitchen, and Chuck Norris just walks his way off the cliff, following like lemmings. Well, Chuck Norris and two Chuck Norrises and a bunch of lemmings. And, there's great like background music of, Walker, Texas Ranger. How do you memorize the tone with it though? Right. Good question. Well, that's what the kitchen is, right? So we're in the kitchen, and in the previous scene, we were also in the cafeteria, right? Cafeteria, kitchen related. If it were tone, first tone, it would have been outside the entrance of Hatfield Elementary School in the previous scene. This one takes place in the kitchen of the Hong Kong restaurant, that there's a cliff that the lemmings and two Chuck Norrises are falling off of. And this means from or follow. And I think either way, if it's from, then you come from the person in front of you. And if it's follow, you're following the person in front of you. They're actually quite similar concepts. So we had, sorry, I left out a piece. Before Chuck Norris's fell off the cliff, Christopher Walken was there. And he was saying, "Chuck, don't do it." I can't do it. I can't do any kind of a Christopher Walken impression, but just imagine he's there, talking to Chuck Norris, and he's like, "Don't jump off the cliff, Chuck." So that covers Christopher Walken in the kitchen of the Hong Kong restaurant sees two Chuck Norrises follow each other and fall from a cliff. Now, sometimes when this component here is up here, I prefer to think of an umbrella, right? So here's what's going on. Here we are in Emily's house, and we're in the backyard of Emily's house. And Gary Busey, he runs in and he grabs Gandalf's staff while brushing his teeth with the umbrella with the toothbrush that sticks out of it. And he sticks the staff into the umbrella, and then it starts to magically write the Declaration of Independence in the backyard of Emily's house scene. Now, I've never used these particular components before, these elements of the Hanzi movie method. The actor Gary Busey in the set Emily's house, in the tone, the fourth tone, the room, the bathroom or backyard, to take the props of an umbrella and Gandalf's staff to make a story that leads to the concept of individual. So you can see that this is like a 6 or 7 step process, right? But, I used to work on an assembly line. Actually, it was kind of cool. When I was in school, I was like, assembly lines are like Henry Ford, and nobody does that anymore. And I went and worked in a factory after high school and before college. And when you work on an assembly line, you get good at a few different quick tasks because you do them over and over. So very quickly, you're like, oh, okay, I can easily do these 4 tasks all in a row. or these 6 tasks all in a row. And the first day was tough. Day 1, I was like, oh, how do I get this down, right? But eventually it just becomes an automatic grab these things, grab them together, and make the scene, move on. And it's so much more memorable than just trying to write it on the page. And also, of course, you can get SRS flashcards alongside it if you do it with the blueprint, and that ensures that even if your scene was bad, maybe you didn't make that great of a scene, you'll remember it later because you'll get the SRS and it will remind you, oh, you know what, your scene could be better. So think of it again. But you're not going to be starting from scratch because you're still going to remember that there was this umbrella and that, Gary Busey was around. But you might have forgotten that it was at Emily's house or something like that. So, factory here in America, sure. Factory, yeah, sure, that could work. Okay, last one we're going to do today. So, here we are in our childhood home, and we're in the backyard. Or if there was no backyard, you're in the bathroom. Okay, so the bathroom leads to, oh, it's interesting. I think I might have made a mistake here. Hold on a second. Oh, right. I should have said name starts with R. I said name starts with F, which gave us Fry. I made a mistake there. It should have been a cartoon character whose name starts with R. So who's a cartoon character whose name starts with R? I'm sure that I can come up with one, but R cartoon characters. R name. Oh yeah, Rocco from Rocco's Modern Life, or Ralph Wiggum. Ralph Wiggum from The Simpsons. You guys know Ralph? If you don't, hold on, let me just. This is Ralph, in case you don't know. Most people know Ralph from The Simpsons. So, okay, let's use Ralph instead of Fry. My bad. So let's go back here. So here's what we're dealing with. Okay, Fry. Sorry, Ralph is in the backyard of your childhood home. So imagine yourself in the backyard of your childhood home, and there's Ralph, and he's picking his nose, and he's just like, enjoying himself. And what happens next is that Ralph sees a banana that is sticking out of the ground, but it's about to fall over. Oh no, it's about to fall over. So he grabs a katana and props it up. But when he props it up, it creates kind of like a gate. And slowly, as Ralph is looking at that gate, it turns into the gates of heaven to enter. So this is yet another example of how, even though we had the same props from a few characters ago with Ren, we now have two new props, the same exact props, but you would never confuse them because Ralph is there in this one. It's in the backyard of your childhood home, and it ends with the gates of heaven. Whereas the other one is Gordon Ramsay in an elementary school in the kitchen, and it ends up as a person, right? So even though you have the exact same components, because all the other factors are totally different, you'll never confuse them. And you'll notice how when I explained the banana and the katana, I said that the katana was propping it up, right? So that was trying to show you the difference in the positioning, right? Because the only real difference between Zhu and Ren is the positioning, right? But in this case, once you imagine that positioning of the katana with the banana going over the top, it's fairly easy to remember, And then this is one of those things that beginning Chinese learners think is so hard. Like, oh my God, look how close those characters are. It's never an issue. You're always like, yep, nope, got it, because you did the Hanzi movie method correctly. And then as a reminder, for those of you who don't know about the null set, in Pinyin, some pronunciations are classified as not having a final. So they have an initial, they have a final, and a tone. The initial sound is kind of like your consonant sound. The final is kind of like your vowel sound. And the tone, of course, is one of the 5 Mandarin tones. And so when there is no categorized final, we call that the null set. And it always takes place in people's childhood homes because usually this is the most memorable spot. And there are a lot of pronunciations that have a null set. So it is the strokes are the same but positioned differently. Panchizi. So he's referring to ren, zhen, and ru. So let me just, sorry, I keep thinking I'm on my other screen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Matt Fry got it there. So in this case, he put it as ru, ren. And my point to you, Panchizid, was that you might look at these two and think, look how similar they are. But I guarantee you that when you start to see them in context and then you make a scene that points out that the first stroke in ru is longer and the second stroke comes underneath it versus ren, which is either completely this is a somewhat stylized font, so you have the katana stroke and then the banana stroke, but in a lot of fonts it's literally exactly the same. It's like perfectly what do you call it, like actually how it looks on YouTube there from Matt Fry. So but you won't get them confused anymore. You're saying you get confused when you're reading Chinese. You won't get confused with them anymore once you make sure that in your person scene, the katana and the banana are positioned in one way, and then in the ru scene, they're positioned another. So it actually ends up helping. Okay, so let me know what you guys thought of this style of presentation, because what I want to do is try to figure out what the right way is to present this stuff to you guys. Today, the way I did it was I went through all of the prompts and tried to come up with answers to them ahead of time. Now, I think maybe I should have started the stream earlier. Maybe this is not the best time because I noticed that the concurrent viewers were a little bit lower, because I think at this time it's mostly just people in the US who could do it. Whereas if I did it in the morning or maybe like late morning or early afternoon, we get more of the world here. And what I'm thinking is that if everybody comes up with their own good examples, even before the live stream starts, we can start to really move through these quickly. And I can show you just how fast you can end up remembering a character. And just also to show you that when you get good at it, you don't need to overthink it. You just go with what comes into your mind. You know, you just see the components. You're like, okay, katana, banana, Gordon Ramsay, elementary school, person. All right. Did it a bit and done. Right. Like it's just a really quick thing that you can usually do. Every now and then you'll have like a moment of lacking in knowing what to think. But when that happens, it's always no big deal. You can just kind of like take a little break, take a couple breathers, you know, grab a coffee, come back, and then you'll probably get it first thing. Oh, yeah. So I think I need to do this a bit earlier. But today, you know, just one of those days. I got caught up with a number of things happening at Mandarin Blueprint, because there's a lot of cool stuff that we're doing at the moment. And it's just, sometimes you have these days where I'm like, I said I was going to live stream as often as I can. And I was like, I still have energy, and I'm, because it's getting late for me. I'm such a dork. I go to sleep at like 8 because I get up at 4:30 because I'm just like, otherwise I won't get nearly the stuff that we need to get done. So, anyway, chronically online. So anytime is good. All right. Got it. Panchizied. Anyway, so awesome stuff, guys. Love it. By the way, if you want to get like a guide on every single step the whole way through, like literally every component, actor, set, prop, chosen, made a flashcard for it, given a review sort of schedule, then take the Mandarin Blueprint Challenge. That's what we put together to be. It's $7. It's a 15-day or 30-day sequence where there's a companion course, and then you go through the blueprint, which is where we teach characters and words and then grammar in phases 1, 2, and 3. Simple grammar in phase 3. But essentially, you'll be reading real Chinese by the end of the challenge. 15-day challenge is twice as much the workload day to day, so you have to have more of a daily time commitment. But the 30-day challenge is very manageable. And so if you guys want to check that out, mandarinbp.com/challenge-LS. If you put in the LS, then we'll know that you signed up from the live stream. And if you signed up from the live stream, then it will tell me, hey, we should do more live streams, right? And I'm enjoying it. I think it's really fun. I want to build this up and, tell your friends if they're interested in Chinese. One of the things that we don't do nearly enough here at Mandarin Blueprint is just ask for you guys to share our stuff, because we're always like, well, if it's good, people will share it. But, sometimes you just got to say like, hey, let other people know, because everybody really enjoys Mandarin Blueprint when they do it. And a lot of times they just don't know that it even exists. So thank you so much, everyone. I really enjoy these. I'm going to do this again tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow we're running a webinar. So I may not live stream on YouTube, but I am running a webinar. So let me just give you guys the link to that if you guys want to see it. Webinar link. Just a moment. I can find it here. So the webinar is essentially, it's a much more prepared presentation than what I've shown you today. It's just about the things that we learned that led us to build the blueprint. Our, magnum opus course took us 6 years to build, and we've still been, improving it since then. It's basically a story of how we came to that, and, how it could help you avoid a lot of the same type of pitfalls. So let me just grab that webinar link for you guys. It's tomorrow at 12 noon. It's free. There is a dreaded pitch at the end to tell you what we actually have, but under no obligation to watch that part. And mandarinbp.com/webinar LS. Let me send it in there. Send it in here. mandarinbp.com/webinar LS. Tomorrow live at 12 noon U.S. Central Time. So that's 1 p.m. U.S. Eastern and 6 p.m. GMT. So like in England. I'll be hosting that one tomorrow. I do have a WeChat account, but not a public one. All right, everyone. Thank you. See you soon.